and I think we're live. Hi, my name is Samantha. Welcome to my Facebook page. If you're on here, you are most likely struggling in your marriage, fighting with your husband, preferably. Hey, I'm live. Hey, everybody. My name is Samantha, and I help ambitious wives stop fighting with their husbands in their marriage. So if you're on here watching, I hope that you are a woman and an ambitious wife. And if not, that's okay too. But those are the people that I help. It's women in relationships who are very powerful and driven. And I just want to pop in here and offer some free training and coaching and talk about what I do. So if you're watching this and you're fighting, don't be afraid to reach out. We're here for you to help you. And I hope you can hear me because I don't have my mic on. And I want to talk about something I talked to a client about today, which is this general principle that is, if you are talking about, or if you are thinking about, now this is your husband, ladies, if you're or your partner, if you're thinking about what he should or shouldn't do, he's not thinking about it. So most of the time in my coaching, I go like this, not most of the time, but I say this often, like, stay on your own turf. And literally, that is my job. My job is to stop you in the conversation when you are making it about something, you're concluding something, you're concluding what he's thinking, you're concluding what he's doing, you're concluding what he should or shouldn't do. You're on his turf, right? So I say, stay on your own turf, because you don't know what he's thinking. And as soon as you are in that story of what he should or shouldn't do, and we oftentimes are, most times we're on his turf, right? And then we're not leading ourselves. And leadership is about leading ourselves, not about leading our husband. It's about leading our conversation to stay on our own turf. So that's why I go, stay on your own turf. And I can hear it. And the reason why I interrupt my clients in those conversations is simply because it doesn't serve them. I'm not saying they're not right about the things. I'm not saying that their husband shouldn't be grumpy, or I'm not saying that they should bring a bad vibe. I'm not saying that they should be on their phone in front of them. I'm not saying all these bad things that we can point to. And I don't disagree that our goal is for this, that, and the other. I'm not saying don't go for the relationship you want. I'm not saying settle for less. I'm not saying that your vision of how you should be together and how wife and husband should be in a relationship, keep your vision, but the way to get there is not by pointing out what he should or shouldn't do, and it's not by having that conversation inside your head. You may not tell him this, but if you're thinking and concluding something about him or what he's doing, you're not in connection and you're going down the wrong path. You're simply going down what I call the warpath. You're walking away from love, not towards it. And we're either going one direction or the other. We're either making love or we're making war. We're either walking towards love or away from it. So when you have that conversation, and it's a habit, it simply is, we see a problem, we identify it, we want to fix it. So there is nothing wrong as such in your ambition to fix your problem, but what happens is you point to the things that he should do differently, or you point to things that you think is going on inside his head or on his turf. You're not thinking about what you can do. So basically, the only thing that you should ask yourself, because it's the questions that determine what direction we go, right? So it's actually that it's the questions you ask yourself that determines your conversations, and your conversations and your stories lead you. So by changing your conversation inside your head and your story, you start to lead yourself. And the way to change it is to ask the right questions. For example, gee, what does he feel? Or I'm always talking about Tom and Mary. Gee, I wonder what Tom feels when I'm talking like this. Most of the time, we're not able to ask ourselves those questions because we're so in the story and in the experience and in the emotions of all the wrong things that Tom is doing. So Tom and Mary are just the names I use for couples, right? And and so the only question in order to lead yourself that you should be asking, well, there are a few questions actually, but I want to tell you this, that you can either be right, because it's not wrong, the truth that you're picking up about what Tom should or shouldn't do, about how a marriage should or how a couple should, and yada, yada, yada. It's not that it's wrong. It's not that it's not true. But there are many truths that you can take and pick up and look at. So I always say, and this is what I think most coaches will say inside the leadership and transformation work and world, is that you can be right or you can get to connection. Or connection is my term, but you can be right or you can something else, right? Do you want to be right or do you want to get to connection? You can stand there and be right about all the things Tom should do better or shouldn't do, or that if you know the kid's bike is not working or is the lamps hanging down the ceiling, you can be totally right about that should be fixed and that's dangerous and all these things, right? All these rational things. We always have these rational explanations to why Tom should do something better, which basically is a rational explanation and a rational excuse for our own bad behavior. But it takes a while to see that, right? But just remember this: when you are thinking about or even talking about what Tom should or shouldn't do, your husband should or shouldn't do, he's not thinking about it. The only way, if you want him to start thinking about something or changing behavior or doing something, is that you leave it alone and you think about what can I do right now, right here, without blaming, complaining, or hosting a huge pity party. If you can ask yourself that question, you are leading yourself. You don't have to stop blaming and complaining per se, but if you stop to ask yourself, what can I do right now? And I even did it inside the car with the kids screaming. And once I managed, and most times I don't manage, and I just blow up and act like them. But sometimes I do manage to actually lead myself and stay happy and stay the turn. Like, what can I do right now without blaming, complaining? Or it's not with the kids. It's like, what can I do right now without losing it, screaming, or something like that, right? And it's about asking the question, and then you fail and you recommit. But once you're going to experience, sooner or later, you're going to experience actually listening to yourself, but it starts by asking that question. So, the number one question that goes wrong inside most of my clients' heads, basically just around the time they come to me, is this question of should we be together or not? Can I really be together? Can I be together with Tom when there's that and the other? Can I be together with my husband when X, Y, Z? And you should never ask yourself if you should be together. That's actually a question I always take off the table. Lead yourself with love and see what happens. Lead yourself by asking the right questions. Get it over your inside of your head. Just ask it. You don't have to immediately change, but when you ask the questions, you are leading yourself. You're taking responsibility to change a story that gets you to connection, because it's always the story inside our head that directs us. And of course, it's also our subconscious mind, which is also driven by stories, but the stories that we can change right now, right here, that come out of our mouth and our feelings and our communication is not just our mouth. We can change that. And we can that is also what I call changing your attitude, because that's what you look at, right? But anyways, that's a bit of a different story. But this is about realizing this number one thing and seeing what a pattern and a habit it is to start a conversation around all the things that he, like concluding things and talking about what he should do different. Ask yourself, what can I do right now? Ask yourself, do I want to be right or do I want to get to love? And know that is the questions you ask yourself is the way to change your story. And if you don't change your story, you don't manage your mind. You're not the leader of your emotions. You're just a follower. Because you get triggered when your husband does something because he's in his emotions, most likely, right? And then you get into your emotions and you're both led by your emotions. He gets triggered, does something, you get insecure, triggered, slash, whatever you call it, but then you're running around after your emotions. You're not in front of them, directing them with the questions that you're asking yourself. If you could just stop to pause, and I know this is very, very hard, especially inside when everything's going on, but it takes practice and you will be able to. But the day you become the leader of your emotions is the day you start asking yourself those questions and just stop and pause. For example, this is another example of great questions that are very hard in practice, is to ask, what is my intention before you open your mouth? This is super, super hard, but see how you are leading yourself when you ask yourself that question? Because when you're just talking and responding and going back and forth and he's saying something, you feel attacked, you defend, blah, blah, blah. Nobody's leading anything. We're just responding with emotion, bing, 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 bing. And if you can ask a question, then you start to lead and not and you lead yourself instead of just responding or reacting. I guess there's a difference between, yeah, I think reacting is when you're managed by your emotions, right? Responding is like it's more thoughtful and you wait, you pause, da da. And when we have a lot of emotions, when we're in a love relationship, when we love our husband so much and we're super ambitious, and of course we get hurt and we get all these things, we wouldn't be in this trouble if we didn't love him so much, right? So it's not a bad thing. Your emotions are not a bad thing. Everything is a good thing. Nothing is really bad, even though it can seem that way when you're fighting or when your love relationship is not the way you want it to be, or when you're sad, it seems bad. But all these emotions are just emotions. But you have the opportunity to try to lead them and be the leader of, and lead yourself down the love path. And you can get to connection in an instant. It's about asking yourself questions and stopping the behavior that gets you down the wrong path. So I hope this was helpful. This is one of the things I really do inside of my coaching is just to go, because it doesn't serve you to have that conversation. I'm not saying you're not right. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you're not true. I'm just saying this is not serving you to go down this path in your logical mind. And that's the way your mind will walk and go down if you don't coach yourself, if you don't have a coach, and if you don't do something radically. You will keep having those stories because it's just logical to point to a problem and a solution, but we just never point it towards ourselves. That takes a lot of practice and it's super counterintuitive. All the coaching that I do is like, what? So just remember, I'm not saying you shouldn't have your vision for your marriage. You definitely, I'm just saying that the way to get there, it's always the opposite. Anyways, I can go on and on about this. Shoot me a message or a comment in the section below if this landed. If there's anything you want me to elaborate more on, this really, really helps. This works, and you can create an instant connection immediately, even in the middle of a crazy fight, when you just apply these tools. And remember, ladies, leadership, which is what I teach, which you can also call couples counseling, couples blah, blah, blah. But it's about leadership and it's about leading yourself. We forget that. It's about leading yourself to create a connection inside of yourself and around yourself. It's not about leading your husband. You lead yourself with love, and then you connect with your husband, and then you can actually, by the way you're acting, because you got to connection. You got to get to connection. And there are ways to get there, and there are a few ways that get you out of connection. And those are blaming, complaining, and pity parties. Really only three things. There are a lot of other things that get you to connection. And that's what I teach. Those are my 12 steps to lead with love. And in those, there are actually only 2 steps that get you out of connection. And there are 10 steps you can take that brings you immediately or brings you to connection. And some of them just work instantaneously, and it's magic. So do those. There are many things to choose from to do and just a few to avoid. And then when you do them anyway and start blaming, just admit it. Admit and move on, which is step number 1. Be honest about it, at least when you are blaming him directly or indirectly. That's the key. All right, ladies, have a great evening. I hope this was helpful. I can't see if anybody's on or anybody has any questions, but don't be afraid to reach out to me and my team to help you if you're sitting there at the other end and this sounds familiar, if you're still frustrated working, if you feel stuck. Let us help you get unstuck. Mwah. Have a great Monday wherever you are. Bye.